Todd Neiss. I live in Welches, Oregon, on the flanks of Mount Hood in the Cascades. Um, Recently retired from the Army after a little over 20 years, and uh, in, enjoying that, and hope that it'll give me more time to um, get involved in my research. Um, I bring up the military only because in 1993, April 3rd to be exact, I was participating in a military um, training exercise. And this is an exercise where, as a combat engineer, we use a lot of explosives in our training. And so we um, once a year would go into the mountains onto some private timberland where we could do, full scale explosives utilizing rock quarries that were spread out along this timberlands holdings. And we had three explosions to do that day. In the morning, we did cutting charges, blowing up steel I-beams with C4 plastic explosives. Afternoon, we had a second site that we had a mock minefield laid out, and we were to blow a lane through that in order to get our troops through. And the third and final site was a cratering charge, and that's where we would simulate blowing a road in half, basically denying the enemy the use of that road. And it was shortly after we set the fuses on that third and final blast of the day of 250 plus pounds of ammonium nitrate that we, as SOP, we would get in our vehicles. We had 4 vehicles there. We'd convoy down to a safety staging area, wait for the explosion, and come back and check our work. It was just seemed like just another day. Um, so I was situated as a passenger behind a driver of the second Humvee. So there were 2 Humvees up front, a troop transport behind us, and then the commander's Humvee following up in the rear. As we were getting away from this bomb that was about ready to go off, um, it was a beautiful day, and I had the window unzipped, and I frequently hunted that area for deer and elk, so that's what I'm doing. I'm looking around for any kind of wildlife I could see, but what I saw was a lot more than I asked for. As we rounded this one corner, the brush cleared away, and I had a direct line of sight to the second blast site. And as we came around that corner, I'm looking down there, and there's like these 3 very dark, very large figures standing three abreast of each other, watching us come down the road across the ravine from them. And my first thought was, what are those people doing down there? There's not supposed to be civilians in the area, but it took less than a second for me to realize what I was looking at were not people at all. Yeah, they were standing up on 2 legs, but that's where the distinction became very clear. The arms of these things went well below their knees, just unbelievably long arms, as well as the legs were quite long as well. These things looked like bodybuilders. All 3 of them were very fit, I guess. I mean, very broad shoulders, barreled chest, tapered waist. But it was just what got me was those arms went so far down below their knees. Um, the one in the middle was, I would estimate, about 9 feet in height. And the 2 that flanked it, left and right, were probably 7.5 to 8 feet. They came up to about the shoulder of the biggest one. None of them small by any means. Uh, but here's a really interesting trait that it made me convinced that what I was seeing was Bigfoot. And I never really studied the subject. Wasn't even interested in the mystery of Bigfoot, even growing up here in the Pacific Northwest. But yeah, that all changed for me that day. Um, the one in the middle, though, he stood there like a rock, just like a statue. It just did not flinch. But the two on either side of this larger one exhibited this behavior where they were shifting weight from foot to foot, and in the process, rocking left to right like this. These long arms were swinging in front of their knees, and they did that the entire time I saw them. Now, this wasn't a 2 second, 5 second something ran across in front of my car. I got a glimpse of something. This was easily 25 seconds to half a minute that I got to watch them. And after, say, 25 seconds had elapsed, seemed like an eternity, we rounded another corner and I lost sight of him. And just at that, I just slumped back in my seat, and I'm just trying to comprehend what I just saw. It just was amazing and scary and just unbelievable at the same time. So it wasn't long before we arrived at the staging area, and I took the time to jog back up the road a little ways. I was hoping to get to a vantage where I'd be able to see him again while the rest of the trucks were coming in. And I got as far as I dare go. You can't be out of sight. Um, just basic protocol for safety reasons. Got as far as I could, and I'm standing on my tiptoes with my hand on my head, just trying to see over this darn hill that was blocking my view. And as I stood there trying to strain to see anything I could, I heard somebody yell out my name. And I turned and I looked to my right, and here comes Sergeant Martin, Jeff Martin. He starts walking my way. And he goes, "What are you looking at?" And I dropped my hand on my side, and I said, "Oh, nothing." And he kept coming forward. I remember he was smoking on a cigarette, and he got right up front and kind of looked left and right, make sure nobody else was in the earshot. And he goes, "I don't suppose you saw what I saw down at the second blast site." And I said, "I don't know, Jeff. What did you see?" I mean, I didn't want to be the one to say it in case he saw something else. But sure enough, he said he saw 3 huge, hair-covered, black. He said, "Bigfoot, I guess." And I said, I think you're right, because I saw him too. Now, at that time, I was a traditional National Guardsman. So we're training 1 weekend a month generally. And it was the next drill, so that was April, so early May. Before that drill would end, we had 2 more soldiers come forward independently who admitted to seeing the exact same thing that Jeff and I had seen. So it really makes for one of the more unusual, unique encounters. Just because of the nature of what we were doing. I mean, we were out there blowing up the forest. But 2, multi-animal sightings are pretty rare, as are multi-eyewitness sightings. So it's just a whole combination of circumstances has made this a pretty fantastic encounter. So I've been studying and researching, doing investigations, putting together expeditions, long-term expeditions, as well as I've founded a nonprofit research organization based on science and education, and we're involved in both. I recently just gave a talk to some 8th graders at an outdoor school up on Mount Rainier, and we've done similar things with the Audubon Society, and so we try to give back. We've sponsored other researchers from time to time with equipment and money. So it's been a very long, strange trip for me, but I have to say, I wouldn't change a thing. It certainly changed me. I can't. It's just hard for me to wrap my arms around what 25 seconds in my entire adult life, how that changed the rest of my life. There's just so many things that just throughout my life since that time have changed, and I think it's interesting to not just believe they exist. In my case, knowing they exist is it's just it creates a thirst that you just can't quench. You're just I don't know that I'll ever be satisfied again if I don't see them again. I mean, part of it's personal, part of it's science, but it's like, I don't know. It's like winning the lottery, and you just want to do it one more time. But yeah, so it's been quite a interesting journey. A lot of people ask, you know, being at the time a non-commissioned officer in the Army, was there any concern for my going public about it? And to be honest with you, I was very initially very reserved about going public. I'd only spoke with a few close friends and family members about it. Ultimately, the word got around, and I decided, and it was a tough decision, to go public with it. I was not only a non-commissioned officer, I was a family man. I was vice president of a shipping company at the time on my civilian side, and I worked hard for my reputation. And so you can imagine, the potential for people to question your motivations, your credibility, your sanity, even. Um, and I really hesitated about going forward publicly, but then I started thinking about it the other way around. Not, are you worried about what other people are going to say to the point where you won't tell the truth? That you'll keep it inside, and what good is that? I mean, I can't help but think there was a reason, a purpose behind. I can't. I keep asking, why me? Why somebody else? Why 25 seconds earlier or later, I might not have seen it. I mean, the odds were just, so I've been kind of looking for a purpose, and part of that uh, has been not just to see them again, but to learn more about them, to get them um, recognized by mainstream science, to the point of having a taxonomic identity, and find out where they fit in the grand scheme of things. But once that's done, I think once we get mainstream science on board, um, which is not an easy thing to do, um, our hope is to enact some sort of protections for them. In other words, I've done some study on the Endangered Species Act, as well as the ICUN's International Conservation Union uh, in uh, in Europe, which is a worldwide body that does these what they call the red list. They're the ones that get classified endangered or threatened, or there's actually 9 different uh, categories, and in both the IUCN and the Endangered Species Act actually have clauses in them that allow for um, scientific acceptance without physical proof, and that's fairly recent. But they've actually accepted some really really good photographs of different species that were clear enough that they could say, yeah, this is a whole different subspecies or whatnot. So the mission statement for our conservancy is discovery, research, knowledge, recognition, and preservation. And it's got to happen in that order. And one of the ways we're doing that is kind of unique, is going through First Nations and American, Native American tribes and reservations, because number one, we've been here, what, 300 years maybe, and they've been in this area anywhere from 17 to 19,000 years. They're the ones that have by far the most amount of experience, you know, living symbiotically with these things under different circumstances. And I have yet to find a tribe that will deny their existence. So, because they have their own autonomy there on the reservation, they have their own tribal laws and whatnot. We thought it'd be best to start with some different tribes, write up some, official proposals, and if we can get one tribe on board saying, at least as long as you're on the reservation, it's illegal to hunt, harm, harass, trap, kill these creatures. I think they would catch on to different reservations, because it's kind of giving them credence too to their lore, if you will, their history, and they're saying, whether you believe it or not, we do, and this is our law on our land. And if we can get a bunch of tribes and reservations on board, I think it'll make it an easier sell to eventually get the non-native people on board. So that's one initiative that we're working on, and we're working with 5 different tribes right now, both U.S. and Alaska and Canada, excuse me. So anyway, that's kind of some of the things we have on board. Our long-term goal is to actually open a world-class Bigfoot interpretive center somewhere in the Cascade Mountains up by where we live, and this would be far and away above what anybody's done so far. I mean, it would have a conference center, it would have a theater, you would have obviously a museum with all kinds of artifacts and casts. We'd have an art gallery, and laboratory classrooms, and it would be a very, very big project. But and when we're not using it for Bigfoot stuff, we could also lease it out for other conferences and whatnot. I mean, just keep it cost effective. But main thing would be getting people in, doing some interactive stuff, displays, and by the time they walk out, hopefully they got a better understanding and of what we're dealing with. And so hopefully that's not too far down the road. But yeah, like I said, it's really changed my life, and I've put really long time ago, I set aside any concerns for my reputation, because I've got nothing to hide, and I've never changed my story, and everything that's happened is, I think has turned out quite well. For those out there that struggle with the idea of whether or not these things exist, I totally understand. I was right there with you. I know I wasn't really. I tell people I didn't accept it one way or the other. I wasn't interested. I was almost agnostic, if you will, on the subject. It was just I really didn't care. Um, but having seen what I've seen, I'm being one of the fortunate few to have actually witnessed these amazing creatures. I assure you they are out there, and who knows what else might be out there. But uh, I can't unsee what I've seen, nor would I. Um, but I would just encourage you to do your research first. There's so much information that's come out, even recently, but don't just do what I did, which was looking for the latest, greatest, newest information. I remember coming after having my sighting, checking out every book I can find on the subject, and I wanted the newest, latest information. And then I started thinking, these Native Americans are sitting on something. They have to have many times more. So I kind of did a 180, and I started looking at this from the other end. I started looking for the oldest accounts which is a whole lot more difficult. But there are some reference material out there, and it's amazing how much they do know, and think outside the box. A lot of what we do is never been done before stuff. Certainly conventional wisdom, conventional methods for hunting or tracking can be employed, but think outside the box. Think of some things that have not been tried before. Uh, there's a actually I've seen some scientific methodology spin off from the Bigfoot research because people are out there like myself inventing things and new techniques, and we're getting some attention for it, and it's all right to be critical, skeptical, as long as it's constructive, based on actually getting out there and doing your research. It's too easy for somebody to just say, well, it doesn't exist because either I was never taught that it did or I just flat out don't believe it does. I remember being asked the first time I went public, I was asked to go to a Sasquatch symposium in 1996 in Harrison Hot Springs, British Columbia. At that time, I really hadn't established myself as a researcher, and most people were just interested to hear about my encounter story, which is fine. So I got up on stage. I was very nervous, and they just said, "Tell your story," and so I did. And I'll never forget once once we got done. I got done talking. I started to leave the stage. They're like pushing me back out there, saying, "Wait, people might have questions." And I'm like, "Okay, this wasn't in the brochure, but we'll entertain this." So I just said, "Anybody have any questions?" And the first person to stand up was this snarky reporter who stood up and said, "Well, you just got done telling us, a half hour or 45 minutes about your story and your encounter. Give us one good reason why any of us should believe a word you said." And I was shocked. I didn't expect that, but my answer was just as instantaneous, and I just said, "I was asked to come here to tell the truth, to tell my story, and I didn't come here to make Bigfoot believers or converts." I said, "Whether you or anybody else in this room believes a word I've said doesn't change the truth. It'll never change the truth. So believe what you want." And the guy sat down, and that was it. But no, you gotta just. I think it's amazing to just the concept that there's things out there that have yet to be identified, that have yet to be fully understood, and as long as mainstream science isn't going to get involved, well, we can roll up our sleeves just as civilian researchers, get out there and find it for ourselves. So this is one of those circumstances that give us a chance to kind of be junior scientists of our own. It's a lot of fun, and like I say, you may not get anything, but like the lottery, you can't win unless you play. You can't see a Bigfoot unless you get out there, and that's the key. Just get out in the woods, keep your eyes open, keep an open mind, and you'll be surprised what you find.